Welcome to Potentials. This is Lígia, and Reece is our guest today. And he is in my SAALT group, uh, SAALT, LLC, which I've spoken about many times. I am not going to say what those words stand for because it's very long and I'll probably
Right.
mess it up. But we know, and if you know, you know. So
hmm
no, it's we love to talk about quantum physics, about metaphysics, about esoteric things, just about anything, conspiratorial, just all kinds of interesting touch points and concepts, So yeah, what what would you
Absolutely.
what would you like to talk about? Where do we
Absolutely.
begin?
Where do we even begin?
Yeah.
Well, you know what's funny? I have this notebook in front of me, and in case you're wondering, SALT, what it stands for, Strategic Analysis of and Assessment of Longitudinal Technologies.
Thank you.
No problem. Which, in essence, if you think about it, it's kind of exactly what we've all been doing. Taking a look at what these different technologies are, whether it be HARP or I think kind of the latest one I've been interested in is that missing Malaysian Airlines with
Yes, with
Ashton
Ashton,
Forbes.
4 orbs. Yes.
Yeah, right. Four orbs, exactly.
Yes. I love
But,
him.
like I think that the biggest point is kind of like taking a look at all of these different ideas, technologies, and the point is like to see the pattern of how they kind of all interact with each other. And it's kind of painting a larger picture to a larger thing, which is like what we were talking a little bit earlier, the ether, right?
Mm, right.
Even just in all of that right there, it's like you could break that down and talk about it forever, right?
Yes. And we do
That's the truth.
sometimes.
Sometimes we do.
Yeah.
Sometimes we definitely do. But
And it's
yeah, it's been interesting. Salt. It's been a very interesting journey the past year, wouldn't you
it's
say?
been it's been a year. It's almost a year since we started. Apparently it was April 1st. I looked it up.
Mm-hmm.
Um, April 1st of 2023. And
Yep.
but we started with these think tank calls that Dave Rossi from Generation Z had, and he invited us as the Patreon members to join these think tank groups, and
Mm-hmm.
we just all came together like it was meant to be. We just connected, and it's just amazing. Like I don't even know how to put it into words, really, like how it works.
Mm-hmm.
We just kind of all connect on this level of beyond understanding, beyond that.
Yeah, that's what I would say as well too. Kind of just this I don't it's almost kind of like what I would call a sync storm, right? It's just kind of these cascading effects where sometimes it's like you'll have answers before you'll even have the questions for them. You've got to
Yeah,
look backwards in time to find the answer instead of searching forwards. It's definitely changed the way that I've looked at, I guess, the reality around us and how we interact with it, if that makes sense.
absolutely. It's like like Dave always references the movie Tenet, that time
hmm
isn't linear, so we don't look at things. We try not to, or at least I don't as much anymore. Look at things in a linear type of way at time. I don't look at time that way. I don't look at like things can happen in the past and the future, and it's all happening at once, really. It's
Yeah,
kind of weird.
it is. It is. It's kind of to put like a visual to that. When have you
Mm.
seen Interstellar?
Yes.
Yeah, when he's in the wormhole and in the closet scene. That's kind of
Yeah.
what I like to think of as like time space, where we live is space time. It's one one moment in time, the present time, but it's all the places that we could possibly get to all at the same time. Whereas time space is like one location, but all the different segments of time in that location, all the different events that have ever happened at the same time, you know?
Yes.
So it's like it is interesting, like just understanding these different kind of dimensions. It's definitely opened up the mind to be able to see things in different ways. If that, yeah, I'd say that
Yeah,
makes sense.
it does.
Hmm.
How has it changed your life in a practical way to look at things that way?
I
And
would say one of the most practical ways is like, I used to be a really big conspiracy theorist before,
mm,
and just really would get caught into those, especially with COVID and that whole nonsense that went on. And it's just I would say the biggest thing is just being able to focus on myself and not really get so caught in the, I don't know, minutia of the of the nonsense out there so much these days. To really kind of
right,
be able to discern what's like kind of important for me in my journey, if that makes sense. Not to
right,
say that these things that are happening or occurring are not important or, not real in any sense. It's just sometimes from my perspective, like not all things matter to me, I guess. Like I'm not going to interact with every single thing that's going on in the world. I don't need to have an opinion on complicated on every single complicated topic that there is. You know what I mean? So it's
right.
kind of, I guess, in other words, help me focus on my own lane, make me
Mm,
realize that there's more magic and wisdom and beauty than you could really understand if you just sit and like kind of focus where you're at, be present in the
yes.
moment.
Yes, yes.
Hmm.
And the beauty of that moment and how beautiful it can be too, like
Hmm.
because you miss a lot. If you don't if you're not living in that moment, you can miss a lot of really interesting and beautiful things and a lot of synchronicities that are kind of just right in your face.
Yeah, right. It's the absolute truth. It's the absolute truth. I mean, and even too is just like I would say being able to, I guess, I don't know about you, but I don't really, I still do scroll social medias, of course, but I don't really get as involved in it as I used to. Like I
Right,
don't really let my emotional energy get sucked through the Instagrams or face or Twitters or whatever the heck is going on these days, you
right.
know. But yeah, it's like I don't even remember where I was going with that, but I guess just the biggest point is like I've just noticed that even understanding how complicated some of these events are, that it's not really right to judge, like to even put my own emotional energy into it. Like with COVID, for example, I was getting so up in arms about just everything that was happening and getting so upset about things that is making me behave kind of differently and be just stressed out and upset. And kind of looking back on things, I realize now that I guess not that I judge things too quickly, but I feel like I should be more grateful for the situations as they happen,
Mm,
because they've really kind of highlighted a lot of things. Like for me personally, like to put it in perspective, COVID,
mm,
I was really upset. It made me super mad that people weren't seeing things. I just wish everybody would become kind of like a conspiracy theorist and just like see what's going on and maybe we could make a change. And now we're at this end of it. And I'm kind of at the point where I realized that there was so much going on that like, it was just a collision of these bad interests all happening together at the same time. But I guess really my point is I, I realize now like people are at the place where they do realize the conspiracies are happening. They do want to make change, but like it almost makes me sad now. Like I got
mm.
what I wanted, but it's not actually what I wanted.
All right,
I've realized like everybody waking up and getting angry, about these things happening. I that's the part I didn't want. I didn't realize I didn't want people angry, because
right, right.
people don't really operate from a good place when they're angry, if that makes sense, or
Yeah,
make good decisions.
right.
So yeah, I don't know. Long story short is I feel like salt has helped me to calm down, and to be able to operate with intention.
Wow, yeah. Well, that's beautiful. That's I feel like it's given me some perspective as well. I mean, I
Mm-hmm.
think that when I was going through COVID, I mean, obviously I saw all the stupidity and silliness, but I also
Yeah.
looked at some good things that I saw happening.
Mm-hmm.
Weird good things like suddenly kids were in their backyard because I'm in Florida, so it's a little different,
Mm-hmm.
but kids were in the backyard playing with their parents. Their parents were
Mm-hmm.
home from work, actually interacting with their kids, and their kids were home from school. So they all had to be families again. And I
Right.
saw like teenagers walking down the street with their younger siblings and actually walking with them down the street. Like I
Mm-hmm.
never saw that before. I'm like, what is this, the 1970s? What happened here? Like
Right. Exactly.
things really changed. And I thought, well, these are some actually good things that came from it. So I was
Yeah, I agree.
so I actually started seeing some positives, and I wasn't sure how to feel about it anymore. Like it sucks that
Mm-hmm.
people are being forced to wear these masks, but it also seems like other good things are happening, you know?
Mm-hmm.
So it was an interesting time to be alive and
It
observe
really
things.
is. It really is an interesting time, right? Yeah.
Yes, very.
Yeah. What I've noticed, yeah, especially with just so much going on these days is like, I don't know. I feel like I've noticed a lot of I don't know, like a lot of tension, kind of like a lot of like energy trying to pull things apart, if that makes sense. Especially
Yeah,
within a lot of the things that are coming out, sort of like, I don't know, information wise or like new technology, exotic technologies. Cause like, I don't know about
yeah,
you, but I've been seeing a lot of just these kind of like low key or kind of sly on the slide, like news releases of like, oh, hey, turns out we can make like quantum reactors like that are tabletop size or something. And you're just
right.
kind of like, yeah, really? Like, are we
Yeah,
really doing all of these things? Or like, I don't know, they call it interesting stuff like the 0 point energy conference, like all these different techniques of like utilizing it. And like that went on in Europe and just like, yeah, just like it's kind of coming out, but like, I don't know.
very
I don't know. I almost
trickly.
get it. Yeah, I almost get skeptical. Like, how fast will any of this stuff kind of be implemented? You get what
Right.
I
It's
mean?
like a slow drip, like a slow trickle. And I see it because on my Google feed, my that when
Mm-hmm.
I news, I like because it knows my algorithm is always quantum physics. So I keep
Mm-hmm.
getting like physics.org, and it's very mainstream, because that's what Google thinks I want. And
Mm-hmm.
so I get this, and it's like they're talking about some stuff that we talked about a year ago in the group.
Yeah.
And I'm like, they're talking about this now? Like it's actually out there on Google? Like,
Right.
whoa, this is in the feed. This is weird. Like I know that I'm weird and so it's giving me what I want. This is my algorithm, but I'm not the only one seeing this. So it's
Exactly.
just weird.
Exactly. And it's kind of strange for me too, is like sometimes like kind of synchronizes with what we've been talking about a lot of the times.
Yes, it is. It is.
And
And I know that a lot of it is that AI is hearing our conversations or whatever it is. But
yeah, whatever that
but
is.
it's just so bizarre to like we just had a call about, and we talked about certain things and then to see it in my Google feed the next day. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Just kind of weird.
I know it almost kind of feels like dreamlike sometimes,
Yeah.
just like everything that's kind of happened since joining with or not joining, but like really kind of starting to pay attention with these things and honing in on what I'm actually interested or passionate about. Like in regards to these areas of research, life has felt a little bit more like a dream, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Still monotonous, still things going on, but like I don't know, there seems to be a bigger picture unfolding, if that makes sense. But
Oh yeah.
it's almost kind of like a dream. Like it's kind of hard to explain, if that makes sense.
Yes, I feel you, and it's some of it feels like I am not even in control of certain things. Like it's almost like it's just happening, you know.
hmm
Um, things that I just
Question
can't
for you.
explain.
Question for you.
Mm,
probably a little off topic, but I mean, everything kind of comes down to this sometimes. What are your thoughts on, like, have you heard about like the pole flipping type
Mm,
stuff, like in the sun being weird and that type of stuff? You
yeah.
know, yeah, what are your thoughts on that? I've been hearing some grumblings about it.
Yeah, I mean, I've heard a little bit. The sun being weird, it's so relative to where you are.
Hmm.
Because I've seen so many TikTok videos. I've seen so many like two suns, and
Yeah, weird. I've seen that too. Never
where
went in my
is
own life.
yeah, I've never seen it in real life, but like I'm
Hmm.
seeing it on and I'm like, is that real? I mean, it could
Hmm.
be. I keep my mind open to things. It's like, I mean,
Hmm.
maybe that is real. But just like, why is it only real in that area? Or certain people are saying it's real in their areas, but I haven't seen it yet. Like
Hmm.
it's just odd. You'd think that if it was something like that, it would happen everywhere all at
Yeah, you would
once.
think. You would think. And
So
that's
how is that
that's what it
working?
is interesting.
Yeah,
Yeah, I don't know. And it does make me wonder sometimes if even like the data that like comes out and whatnot, like who really knows,
yeah,
about the pole flipping? Because I've seen stuff too about like the magnetic North Pole being in Siberia right now, and it's
yeah,
just been like drifting and whatnot.
yeah,
But I don't know, maybe I'm crazy, but I almost feel like we would feel some sort of difference, like things would be a little bit crazier than what it is, you
yeah. I
know?
don't, how would it really, when it shifts, how is it really going to affect the world in general, the
Hmm.
earth, the earth? How is it going to affect the earth and whoever is on the earth? Wouldn't it be somewhat drastic? But I mean, I guess there are some weird weather things happening. But but if you're
Hmm.
a conspiracy person, you're thinking that that's controlled, geoengineering, what?
Hmm.
So how do you know whether it's geoengineering or whether it's from the poles shifting, or there's so many possibilities that it's
Right.
almost like Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. Like, you
Hmm.
know, what's going on?
Right. It's so true. And that's what I mean is like it just seems like almost all these different stories or all these different factions or all these different groups that you talk to, it always kind of leads to like a disaster story or some sort of reset, you
Yeah.
know? And it
Yes,
does make
right.
me wonder about that. It's just like I can't, that old adage, like all roads lead to Rome. It
Right.
feels like all stories are leading to disaster, and it's like I kind of am skeptical of it, if I'm
Yeah,
being
and
completely honest.
true. And also, how much of our own reality do we control?
Hmm.
How much of our reality do we control as a collective? And how much of it do we control individually?
Yeah, right.
And how does that work? That's the kind of thing that I wonder.
Yeah, and yeah, that is kind of it. Those are interesting things to wonder. And I think it just depends on the context, right? What you're able to do, because in
Yeah,
regards to like controlling your reality, how much is it up to you? I would say as much as you want it to, personally. Like think about it at work. Like how do I want to be treated at work? What do I want to do? Like really if you played the cards right and really just worked on your individual reality, you could totally kind of fake your way into being a career, if that makes sense. One of those fake it till you make it type of attitudes.
right,
Like my point is like you can become whoever you want to be here. If you want to be a celebrity, you could do it if you really, really wanted to, right? By controlling and manipulating your own reality all around you. But it does come interesting because I do question, how often does it interact with the collective or, groups or community, that you're surrounding? Is it like something where you got to build up the energetics around yourself more than like what's around you, or
right,
I, and that's kind of where I do think like a lot of those, like we look at the celebrities doing those weird kind of rituals and those different things, like there is kind of like a give and a take. Like, that does, man, I don't know. Maybe I feel like I'm kind of going all around the wall or all around the room, but it's like, I feel like when you're able to harness and create a bigger energy within yourself than, for example, the ones around you, you can kind of harness everybody's for yourself. And if you can do that bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger, it's like really the sky's the limit. You can become whatever you want. And it's kind of like an energetic thing. I think like Donald Trump, for example, I think he's kind of more like that because that's how he is energetically. People revolve around him. He's got so many caught in his orbit now. Does that make
Right.
sense?
Yeah. It becomes an egregore, but
Hmm.
what I've experienced in my own life is when I was a performer on stage, I
Hmm.
was able to create a sort of symbiotic electrical circuit like thing happening with
Yeah.
energy. I would put out energy and it would go into the people who were watching and they'd start participating and then they would
Hmm.
feed their energy back to me,
Right.
giving me more energy, which would
Hmm.
also go back to them and then they would get even bigger energy. And then it just became this huge like conduit,
Right. It's
like
like
an
that whole concept of resonant frequency, right? You
yes,
bang one of the tuning forks over here, and it makes the one over here like ring as well. And then they kind of play with each other, and then it lasts for a really long time,
right.
right?
Exactly.
And it's interesting, like, yeah, to that point, I feel like that's what's going on a lot of the time, way more often than we think. You see it with
Mm,
animals too. Watch an episode of Caesar Milan, I've been watching that this weekend.
mm,
And like the whole point of the show is just energetics between the owner, being a leadership energetic with your dog,
mm.
right? That's the whole point. And I kind of feel like that's really what just it's kind of what makes the world go round, that sort of energetic.
Yeah,
And I do love that. But it does make me wonder how much of it gets siphoned off. You know what I
right.
mean?
Yes, I
Hmm.
agree. Yeah, I could see that happening for sure. Um, and
Hmm.
how do you affect with your energy? How are you affecting the people around you, depending on the type of energy that you have? Because everybody has their own unique energy signature.
That's true. It is true. And that to that point, I feel like that's where being in the present moment is maybe more important because everybody ticks a little bit differently, right? So I don't know. It's hard to say if there's like a definitive, this is how I do things, this is how I don't do things, because I think maybe the most important thing is just being able to listen to the people you're around, being present in the moment. And it kind of will reveal like, how can I be energetically resonant with this person? Does that make
Mm.
sense? Or
Oh
just how
yeah,
can I connect with them in
right,
that way? But it's interesting. It takes, I don't know, kind of what I learned with SAALT too, is taking a step back, and being present, being just aware of what's going on, being able to resonate in the moment, no matter what it is. Even if it's
right,
uncomfortable, don't lie to yourself. Like, sit in the feeling. It's okay. It's there for a
right,
reason too.
right. Well, and that
Hmm.
you don't always have to insert yourself into everything. Like
Yeah.
you can just sit back and not, you can sit back and observe and then participate when you feel the need to, but you don't always have to be 100% always participating all the time because
Hmm.
you can burn yourself out that way.
Yeah, it's true. I don't know if you've noticed how I kind of interact with the SALT group, but it's kind of like that. Sometimes I don't even
Yeah,
say anything. Just listen,
exactly. Yeah.
kind of take it in. But and I think to your point too, there's an important part about protecting your own energy. You can only do so much in a day, and you
Yep.
got to take care of yourself as well. We're all like mortal beings, if that makes sense,
Oh,
right?
yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that protection is really important. And
Mm-hmm.
also what you're putting into your body, also what you're feeding
Mm-hmm.
yourself as well,
Mm-hmm.
besides what you're putting
Exactly.
out there. Yeah.
Yeah, what type of foods and all that stuff, right? Which that's it depends on how conspiratorial you go, but I don't even like to open up that
Yeah.
open up
Well,
that can of worms sometimes. It's just I like to
yeah.
try to eat good and just I'll leave it there. I don't want
Well,
to know
yeah,
all the stuff.
it's not even the food, it's the like the energy that you're feeding yourself, it's the
Absolutely
energy.
right.
Like
It really
I
is.
I'm very fortunate because where I live is there's abundant sunshine. And I
Mm-hmm.
and I need sunshine. I've just one of those I didn't used to. I grew up in an area where there was very little sunshine, very little.
Yeah.
And so
Where'd
I
you
was
grow up?
Pittsburgh.
Of
Pittsburgh
course.
is like the East Coast Seattle.
Yeah.
There's a lot of gray skies. I'm going to say
Mm-hmm.
probably 300 days a year are gray skies and maybe 65 sunny. It was
That's
horrible.
crazy, yeah.
And
Uh-huh.
it might have changed since then, but it was like that. And I just really wanted some sunshine. And
Mm-hmm.
when a little bit later, I moved to Philadelphia because it's always sunny in Philadelphia. But then I found out
Yeah.
it wasn't
No.
because it changed, and
Mm-hmm.
it was not any better there. And then I moved down here, and now it's the same thing where we've been getting some cloudy days. So I've had to
Mm-hmm.
learn how to adapt to.
Mm-hmm.
You have to learn to adapt to not having all the energy that you want all the time and
Yep.
figuring out where else you can get it from. If you can't get it from the sun, where else are you going to get your positive energy from? So you figure
Right.
that out. You're going to get it from nature, are you going
Mm-hmm.
to, which I can here because it's doesn't snow, so I can go out, wander around in the woods all year round and
Right.
touch green leaves and feel the trees, Um,
Mm-hmm.
so
That's so true.
I'm very blessed that way. And then there's ocean right near me, so I can always get some energy from the salt water
Yep.
and the sand, like I told you about, the crystals in the sand.
Mm-hmm.
But then if you don't have that, if you don't have nature or you can't access it, what else do you have? You have to find like what is it? Do you have crystals? Do that help you? Can you,
No, I
you
mean,
know, what is
for
it that
me,
works for you?
absolutely. I mean, for me personally, I think because that is a tricky one, right? Is like how do you find things that energize you? And I
Right.
think this is where I, give a nod to my girlfriend Kateria over there. Because, this is going to sound crazy, but the easiest and most effective way that I figured it out is just what makes you feel like a kid again, and like really honing in on those things that make you feel like a kid. Like, for example, she makes me feel like a kid. I love spending time with her, mate, doing some of her ideas, exploring places. I like spending time with the animals. They make me feel like a kid again. Like dogs, I've got
Yes.
dogs at my parents, horses, those type of
Right.
things. Right. I like progressing in like projects or games, those sorts of things. But I would say a big one I like to pull on because, nowadays we live in a grown up world. You got to work, you got to, spend your time doing things. But,
Right.
I find for me personally, I've learned to find a lot of joy and a lot of energy in work. Sometimes it takes it away, when I let my emotions get away from myself. But like, even finding joy in what you do day to day, might
Yes.
not be the most glorious thing in the moment, or, maybe you have a terrible day or this task that you have to do over and over sucks. But I think that's part of the journey is like being able to find the joy where you are. Like that there's another kind of saying, what is it? The grass is greener where you water it, right?
Mm.
A lot of times the best place to water is exactly where you are. So
Yes.
maybe that's kind of the point that I've been able to learn as, especially what's changed for me over the past like 12 months. Learning to water where I'm at and learning to, I guess, kind of stick in with progressing the things that I really like exactly where I'm at. And learn to like things
Yes.
too that maybe not are always the most glamorous things to do, right? Because I
Right.
still hate Excel sheets, but I'm getting pretty good at them.
Yeah. So that's, well,
Hmm.
that's beautiful. I love that because like, I think I shared with you, I just had a job that I didn't really like at all. But I was
Hmm.
doing that. I was getting to the point where I could see the beauty in some things around me and
Right.
just be in the moment of whatever that is. So
Hmm.
that is really the best way to get through doing something that you're not really that fond of or something that you don't really enjoy is, yeah,
Right.
definitely. Um, yeah, the joy is in the journey, right?
Absolutely. And I feel like, unexpectedly, of course, it opens up opportunities a lot of the times. Like how many times have you ever gotten good at something that you don't like doing?
Yeah,
And like you've kind of learned to start liking it, you know what I mean? And it's just like, okay, I get it. Like I get why people like cooking. You know what I
right.
mean?
Yeah,
But
yeah,
like there's just these certain things that I've noticed like time and time again, like you put yourself through it, you kind of develop this new skill and then all of a sudden like a door opens up or an opportunity just emerges out of nowhere where you're
right.
like, man, it's a good thing I learned how to do that thing I hated. You know what I
Yes.
mean? Like, I don't
Right.
know about you, but I feel like I've found myself saying that so often. Just that, man, I'm glad I learned that thing that I hated to do,
Yeah, yeah,
you
right.
know?
So
So I
true.
don't know. I don't know. It's kind of crazy. Like that's maybe one of the things I've learned in the past 12 months is that there's a kind of a flow to life. There's these ups and downs, and you can kind of, I guess, maybe adjust your own ups and downs. So that way it kind of does give you an optimal outcome, if that makes sense.
Oh yeah,
Right?
absolutely. That's
Instead
beautiful.
of
That
like,
beautifully said.
instead of your downs being like your life falling apart, right? And just shit is blowing up in your face, like your downs are
Yeah.
like, man, I have to suck at a new thing and I have to learn this new thing. But on the other side of it is going to be a glorious up, and I'm going to be able to put it on this
Right.
shelf of either skills or things or people that I know that, like, is ultimately building this kind of beautifully resonant lifestyle or life, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Yep, that's a learning curve. There was another thing I was thinking of too is with like even just little stupid things that you have to do every day that aren't work related, like
Hmm.
like waiting in line, which how much
Hmm.
time do we spend waiting in line? So I used to say to myself, I always get in the wrong line. And then, of
Hmm.
course, I always did because I thought of
Yep.
that. I put myself in that position all the time. So I decided to stop thinking that way and just start like enjoying being in the line. And
Right.
so I started noticing what I liked about the line that I was in, where, oh, look, there's a cute little girl over there and she's smiling and waving at me.
Hmm.
So this isn't the wrong line after all. It's just
Right.
it's taking a little longer, but at least there's something that someone I can interact with, or something that's
Absolutely.
beautiful about this line. So when you start
And right.
looking at a different way, yeah.
And that's where it kind of brings it back to like just perspective. It's your
Yeah,
perspective and your experience. The experience
right.
doesn't change, but look, the perspective changed just right there. And it creates this
Yeah.
whole beautiful experience. And that's what's interesting is like the experience doesn't change, but it does, right? It's like
Yeah.
real and fake at the same time. The mechanics of everything that's happening is the same, but the energies behind it is completely different. The experience of it is
Mm,
resonant at that point, right?
right.
And that's what I find just so interesting is like to the name of the show, right? The potentials of everything is like really quite extraordinary if you take a moment to stop and appreciate it.
Yes.
Really
Yes.
is.
Right. It's like potentials to me are like we were talking about like seeds that grow under the ground, and you
Hmm.
don't know exactly what they're going to look like yet, but you can anticipate what they will look like when they grow, when they pop up and through, and how they're going to end up looking in the end.
Right. That's exactly right. It's it's fascinating. It is fascinating because there's almost like something with that too, with like how we live. You know, it's like you can recognize when you plant a seed in yourself and you can kind
Mm.
of understand what it will grow into, but there are steps that you have to take to get there,
Yeah,
right?
definitely.
And it's going to go through seasons too, right? Some seasons are not
Mm.
good and some seasons are supercharged or better than ever,
Right.
right? And I think it's about learning how to like flow with that, right? And being able to ride it like a wave instead of letting it crash over you like the wave. Like the
Right.
wave doesn't change, but what you do with it is what does change.
All
Is
right.
that
Yeah, well, and
mhm,
also, like when you're a plant coming up, you're going to get knocked around a lot by the wind. But the wind actually, it's proven that wind makes plants stronger. So you
mhm,
kind of want those things to happen.
exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. Have you ever seen those big landscape like trees that they put on like the side of roads and stuff? So it's like the city that does it kind of.
Right.
Like what I've noticed is they blow over all the time in the winds out here in
Yeah.
Arizona, like palm trees, Palo Verde trees. But we were just driving by a place that grows them today, and the pots don't go any deeper down than 4 feet, you know?
Huh.
And some of them are growing in like these kind of covered areas. So they're trees, but they're like kind of covered, they're baby, they're like put these sticks up to keep them up so that way they can sell them and
Yeah.
plant them in the ground. But like to the same point is just they fall over so often. And how many of us are being like prodded and like kept up or like not facing the resistance these days? And it makes
Right.
it seem like life is so crazy. Like the storm is like gonna go crazy. But if you've been through resistance, if you've understood like kind of how these things work, it's just another storm,
Right.
right? It's not something to
Exactly.
get blown, blow yourself out of your roots over.
Exactly.
Hmm.
Yeah.
So it is interesting. Kind of speaking of like up, the propulsion alley, I see a lot
Mm.
of people kind of getting upset about this whole, I don't know, like disclosure. I think that's the word that's used the most.
Right.
Like, do you look into that very often, this disclosure thing?
Well, I mean, I do follow Ashton.
Yeah,
I
of
really,
course.
yeah.
That's like an aspect of disclosure, right? I mean,
Right.
like, kind of the sense of like we're looking for like the proof that the government has the aliens in the hidden room. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, I don't necessarily know if that story is true per se. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
But I wouldn't be surprised if we are being visited or we are being this or we are being that. But it seems like there's a lot of energy and emotional energy just around this whole disclosure situation. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And around Ashton too. Like there wouldn't be this much energy either propping him up or like hating against him if
Right.
it wasn't for something, you know? So I don't know. I just bring it up because I see these really interesting things, but I'm still trying to keep a skeptical eye, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Yeah. I
Yeah,
it's the disclosure movement is it it's hard to say what what is behind it is really, I guess, what I'm saying. What's
right.
really behind it.
Or
Right.
what I guess outcome it's going to prop up, if that makes
Yeah.
sense.
Yeah.
You know,
I
like
mean,
it's
because
interesting. Yeah, keep going.
oh no, no, go ahead.
Yeah, I guess just to the point of like with Ashton is like I really like the reporting. I follow that one very closely too, and I'm of the belief that there's four orbs, you know. Diego Garcia's involved, that whole situation, right?
Right.
But like all the other nonsense that comes out with it. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Is like the kind of arguments that are arguing about like little nitty-gritty details or kind of the people that their whole convincing is just like where's the evidence?
Right.
I don't know. It's interesting because there's still part of me that's skeptical to lend all of my emotional energy to it. Does that make sense? Like it makes
Yeah.
me wonder, like, why is this so, I don't know, energetic? I guess if
Yeah.
that's the word.
Why is it so charged? It's like a very,
Yes, that's the word.
yeah, it
Yeah.
is.
What are your thoughts? Why do you think it is so charged?
I feel like there's some people that are behind it that don't want it to come out, that don't want certain things to come out, and so
Hmm.
they're doing whatever they can to push against it.
Hmm.
And so that to me is, I think, a lot of it. Um, and then there's just people that don't want to believe it because it would change their whole outlook. They would have to change everything that they believe in, and they don't really want to do that.
Yeah,
So there's that
that's
too.
very true. That is very true. Yeah, those are really good points. I used to work in like more like I used to work in media actually. And nothing like crazy. It was more like advertising and sales, advertising sales sort of thing. But what I did notice and pick up on is if I were really trying to make it seem like this is completely organic, or like if I was really trying to hide a story, you know what I mean? I would basically create a campaign that throws so much information surrounding the story and make it so ridiculous that it's hard to ever, that basically makes everyone frustrated because they don't know the truth. Does that make sense?
Yeah, and that seems to be like that's what's happening. At least
Yeah, it
in
does.
his case, yeah. Yep.
It does seem like that's what's happening. But who knows? I feel like with more time, more will be revealed. Personally, I feel like 2024 is going to be an interesting year.
I definitely believe that. And I think a lot more is going to be really made obvious because what I'm being told is that um, the there's really no other way to say it. The Star family wants to come out. They want to
Hmm.
be, they want to come out and be like, hey, we're tired of hiding. You know,
Hmm.
we're here and we're not trying to hurt you. And there's some that are, I guess, but the
Hmm.
majority of them really aren't. And so they're just going to be like, yeah, we're here and we're going to show
Right.
you. We're tired of hiding. So
Right.
it's going to
That's
happen.
interesting. That's interesting. And I haven't heard that before, but I've heard like kind of similar stories in different realms. You know what I mean? Instead of like remove what you said, the word star family, and replace it with angels and demons,
Mm.
Like I've heard it in a lot of different aspects too. And it does make me wonder in a sense, like, are we talking about all the same stuff? You know
Yeah.
what I mean? Star families, is it angels and demons? Is it both?
Multi-dimensionals,
Yeah, it
beings
does
that,
all these different
yeah,
things.
right.
Hmm. So yeah, it is interesting. It does make me wonder if we'll see some interesting things in 2024. I guess I'll leave it there if that makes sense.
Yeah, yeah. Well, we could just call them non-human intelligence, because
Yeah, that's the
they're not.
seems to be the new moniker, doesn't
That's
it?
the new word, right?
I know. I
For
know.
everything. So,
It's so true. It's
yeah.
so true. But I actually gotta start heading off over here. So,
Okay.
but
Thank
I
you
really
for
do appreciate it.
thank you
Yeah,
for coming on. Yeah, it was great. It was a great conversation, and I appreciate it.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And can you remind me as well too, where have you been putting potentials out these days? Because I mostly watch it from links that Jared sends me. I'll be honest with you.
Oh my God. Jared, he's my number one cheerleader. I love him.
Jared's
Um,
the best.
yes, I definitely should promote myself better. I forget to say it at the beginning, but
Hmm.
yes, you can find me on YouTube. It's the Potentials podcast at Generating Potentials. You can find me on Patreon, yeah, Potentials podcast.
Nice.
Um, and those are where you'll see the full episodes. The ones on Patreon have a little bit more classified information, like some quantum kinetics,
Hmm.
things that I can't put on YouTube. And
Hmm.
also, like for people who don't have YouTube Premium, and they want to be a Patreon member for less than what they'd pay for YouTube Premium,
Hmm.
they can be a Patreon member. So I encourage that. Also, you can find me on TikTok, X, and Instagram at Generating
Beautiful.
Potentials. Yeah.
Beautiful. I love it. And don't go looking for me online because I don't put anything worth it out there. You know, I still am working in like a potentially corporate career, so I just kind of leave a blank digital footprint. I try to, if that
Right.
makes sense.
Understandable. Understandable. Yeah.
I
Well,
think in about 5 or 6 years, I'll be very grateful for that sort of,
yeah.
behavior.
Yes, yes, you probably will. But yeah, it's been great that having you as part of SALT and the contributions that you make. And I'm looking forward to seeing whatever you end up doing with SALT because we all
Right.
have our own little niche that we found, and
Hmm.
it's something that we do. So, and sometimes multiple things,
Right.
so right. So yeah.
Likewise.
Yeah.
Likewise. And by the way, I got to get this in here too. I was saving it for the end. Happy birthday, by the way.
Oh, thank you.
Absolutely. Happy
Yeah,
birthday.
thank you. Yes, I do podcasts on my birthday. I'm a dork, but whatever.
Oh, I don't think it's a dork. I feel so special.
Uh,
I gotta do a podcast with Linda on her birthday. And do you prefer Linda or Lygia, by the way?
I personally don't care. Just don't call me late for dinner. You can call me whatever you want.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much. I really appreciate it.
Thank you, and we'll see you next time, everyone. Ciao for now.
Yeah.